Adesina, President of the African Development Bank. Thank you.
You may please have your seats. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Adesina. Good morning, cabinet members here and heads of SOEs, members of the diplomatic corps, and our partners and donors. We are here this morning for an important program, and that is a high-level expanded cabinet meeting, as we call it, and also to launch the Liberia Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank, and also to welcome our friend, our brother, and partner of Liberia, Dr. YEIB Adesina, to Liberia. This is not the first time Mr. Adesina has been to Liberia. He's been here many times. And the government also, because of his splendid relationship with our country, thought it wise to honor him and decorate him with one of our highest honors in the land. And so this program, we are a little bit behind schedule, and so we'll start in earnest. And we'll move through the program quickly. So if you have your program with you, as you go through it, we'll start with the opening prayers. There'll be a musical interlude and cultural performance. For that, I would like to appeal to those who will be performing, to do that quickly. We want to spend too much time performing. And then there'll be welcome remarks and presentation of Dr. YEIB Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, by the Minister of Finance. And then there will be a presentation by the President of the ADB Bank. Following the presentation, there will be discussions, and we expect everyone to participate. You may ask your questions as you see fit. And then there will be your cultural performance, a brief overview of one of the seminal projects that we ever undertake in this country, which is the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. And that'll be done by the Minister of Commerce and Industry. And there will be the official launch of the bank. It will be followed by remarks by Dr. Adesina, and then the special statement by His Excellency the President. We'll formally cut the ribbon to the project, and then finally will be launched for all participants. But I'd like to appeal to you that we do this in record time, because we're already behind time, as I said. So without further ado, I would like to ask Reverend Chukon Langford, the religious advisor to the President, for invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father, our God, we honor you today because you are God. We recognize your holy presence in this place. Today, as a government and people, oh God, we just gave you ourselves, our plans, and all the activities that has to be done to bring transformation to this people, to this generation, to the youth of our land. So today we submit ourselves to you, all of our activities, oh God, that it be enveloped into your program, and that the best outcome, oh God, will be that which you have planned many, many years before the foundation of the world was laid. So today we pray, Lord, that you will strengthen our hands, our hearts, our heads to receive that purpose, that plan, that we will join you in bringing this to a fruitful reality. Take the glory, the honor, the praise, and the power through all of the activities today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. We also have in our midst, and my apologies, the Speaker and members of the House of Representatives, as well as the chiefs and elders and traditional leaders of our country. Before we do the musical interlude, I've read a lot about Mr. Adesina, and I've been fascinated by some of his quotes. And I'd like to talk about a few here. He says, Africa is not a hopeless case. Africa is the hope of the world. And regarding the bank, the African Development Bank you have today is not the African Development Bank you used to have. This is a global institution now. And indeed, we are experiencing the bank as a global institution. With that, we'll call on the culture troupe to provide us with a musical interlude. And please make it short. Are you ready? All right, okay.
Mr. President, our platform guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've been asked to do a special on the African Development Bank, how it was established. And so we are here to let you know that the performing art plays a vital role in the dissemination of information and so forth. My name is Kekura Kamara. I'm the Arts and Cultural Ambassador, Republic of Liberia. President Tubman, in 1959, called a meeting in Senegal that brought two independent African leaders, President Kwame Nkrumah and Ahmed Sékou Touré of Guinea. And so at that conference, the idea came about putting them together so that they will help to free the other African countries that were under colonial rule. And so when they finally decided, and then came out the need for them to, how they will finance, these countries. And so, Mr. President said the time is not in our favor to present this drama, but I think it's needed. People need to know about how Liberia participated in the organization of the African Development Bank. President Tubman said at a meeting, it is time We cannot continue to rely on colonial financial structures. We must build our own bank, an African Development Bank for Africans by Africans. And so Dr. Horton at that meeting said, you know, Dr. Horton was a banker, very, and so Dr. Horton said, Mr. President, it is time. We have the intellectual capital and the political will. Liberia is ready to lead. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome just a drama that will just tell us how it was Mr. Gibson. Mr. Gibson. Mr. Gibson, come here. Sorry. Please come on stage. The drama. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, in Andaraj, a short drama in honor of our guest. It is a narration. In 1847, Liberia led the charge for African redemption. This was soon followed by other African nations, including Ghana, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, and other countries.
Let's go. Come.
But soon after the continent got free of international bullying, a new set of problems showed face. Lack of money to carry on development, promotion of health care, and provision of other basic social services. The independent countries needed help which could readily come by without unsatisfactory preconditions.
a problem here. The time was slave or were eating on town.
I tell you, my sister.
What
It's
kind of-
I tell you,
They can talk about African bank. Then we can't eat on time. Me, I tell you, I not what the other thing here.
Ade, it better we go back to our where people
yes.
than to come in the dark continent. Yeah.
I go read, but right now I go read.
That go back.
Africa was under threat of returning to the bad old days. The people wanted change. A change from their newfound freedom back to the old ways of life. Life under the scorching waves of colonial masters. But this catches the attention of their leaders. Soon, 3 regional leaders from West Africa, including Ama Sekou Touré of Guinea, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and William V.S. Tubman of Liberia.
Colleagues, it's very timely that we're here. We need to do something. Africa depends on us. We need to resist. The colonial days. As leaders of Africa, we need to do something for Africa. Mr. President of Ghana, we need to build our own bank. I think it's a way forward to bring development to our people. So I think as a leader, and today we are in Sanakwere, we need to form our own African Development Bank. What is your take?
You are right. Economic independence is our next frontier. We need to form a united bank for Africa and for Africans.
Oui, merci, mon ami. Engageons-nous. Nous allons donner naissance à ces rêves. Et des générations seront grâce à lui. Merci.
Thank you.
And something had to be done, and fast. And so the leaders regrouped and had a meeting in Sanikweli.
Bonjour.
And then it was settled that they formed the African Development Bank in 1963 in Sudan, which came into force in 1964 with the aim to promoting economic and social progress. It began operations in 1966 with a mission to reduce poverty, improve living conditions, and mobilize resources for development. Over the years, the African Development Bank has expanded its membership to include non-regional countries. It has become a leading development institution in Africa.
Not only empowering women, but they will bring more opportunity for the youth. We need development in our country. We need our country to be rebuilt. We need infrastructure in our country. We need more development in Liberia.
That one that's true. You know, they want to talk for, I forgot, I just made me to tell them I want to talk for. For the African Development Bank, we need to come to ourselves and get our own bank in Africa.
Yes, sir. Me, women empowerment, women empowerment, women empowerment.
Development, development, development.
Development. And in Liberia alone, the bank has carried on numerous contributions. Okay, the list continues with the bank, whose true instrumentality, and that's the instrumentality of Dr. Akiwumi, has brought tremendous wealth, has been doing tremendously well in other areas, including infrastructure, agriculture, health, youth empowerment, and a lot more. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to Dr. Akiwumi Adesina for a job well done. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Fami Awolowo University, affectionately called OAU, where he earned a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics with first-class honors in 1981. The first student in the university's history to achieve that distinction. His academic journey continued at Purdue University in the United States, where he earned a master's degree in 1985 and a PhD in agricultural economics in 1988, winning an outstanding PhD thesis award for his research. These formative years, grounded in both rural realities and academic excellence, shaped Dr. Adesina into the visionary leader we celebrate today. Dr. Adesina's philosophy is not new. It is deeply rooted in his extensive background as a development expert and a public servant. Before taking the reins at the African Development Bank, he served with exceptional distinction as Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development from 2010 to 2015. There, he spearheaded bold reforms that transformed food production, introduced transparency into the fertilizer supply chain, and championed agribusiness as a pathway to wealth creation for millions of farmers. This hands-on experience as a government official, seeing challenges and solutions from the ground up, gives him an unparalleled understanding of what it truly takes to drive change and achieve results. His tenure as president of the African Development Bank since 2015 has been nothing short of revolutionary. Under his leadership, the bank's capital grew from 93 billion United States dollars to an outstanding 313 billion United States dollars, cementing its status as one of the world's most robust, impactful development institutions. Today, with his presence, we'll be launching what is dubbed the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank, meant to give opportunities and empower the young people of this country. In 2018, January precise, Dr. Adesina was given one of Liberia's highest honors by former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the Order of the Star of Africa, with a grade of Grand Band Commander. As the Chinese say, an hour of conversation with a wise man is worth more than 10 years of study in the library. So now, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Cabinet colleagues, I cannot continue to be the checkpoint between you and this wise man. And so it is my distinguished honor to present to you a son of Africa, a son of West Africa, a son of Nigeria, Ibadan, Oyo, and a son of the world, a man of great and a man of weight, a man of thought and a man of action. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina.
Kindly be seated. Thank you very much, Honorable Augustine Gaffon, the Minister of Finance and Development and Planning, the Governor of Liberia, to the African Development Bank Group. And I think you should give it up to him once again because I'm so proud of him. And he had a fantastic record here. And when His Excellency, Mr. President Bukai called me that he wanted to appoint him as Minister of Finance, it didn't take me half a second to tell the President, that's a fantastic choice. I'm forever grateful to her because she bestowed on me the Order of the Star of Africa with a grade of Grand Band, one of Liberia's highest distinction. on January 15, 2018. I was going to kind of see whether I could put it on. I think this is the way it works. Like that, right? And this is supposed to go somewhere here. I think this goes like that. It looks cool, right? So, Mr. President, now I'm properly dressed. So I decided that I will wear this insignia proudly today. I was present for the inauguration of His Excellency George Weah on the 25th as the 25th president. And most recently, I was here on January 22nd, 2024 for the inauguration of His Excellency President Boakai as Liberia's 26th president. You're all very lucky to have him, because in the car coming, he spoke to me about his parcours, they say in French, from very, very low beginning, very poor schools, working weeks to go to school, eventually made it to where he is today. If the president can make it to where he is today, anybody can. Congratulations, sir. You're a great pride to us. Liberia's peaceful transitions of power are a testimony to its democratic strength and as a source of pride for Africa. I would like to commend each and every member of your government and other leaders here today for the various inestimable roles that they serve every single day in advancing Liberia's development, and congratulations to you all. So today, I would like to speak to you. I've been asked, actually, to speak to you by His Excellency the President. And so I would like to share with you some of my experiences as president of the African Development Bank. And so I'll be speaking to you today on Liberia, Arise and Shine. I'll be speaking not only as president of the African Development Bank, but I'll be speaking as a proud son of Africa, a believer in Africa, a friend of Liberia and its people. The fundamental thesis for everything that I will tell you today is that God did not make a mistake making me an African. And I always say that on the day of resurrection, if I'm allowed to make a request to God, I'd like to come out with an African flag and thank God, yes, we made it, thank God at last. Liberians, you are a very unique people. This is a special place, a place where the voice of freedom went forth from Liberia's establishment in 1822 to its independence in 1847. A nation that became the epicenter of hope that inspired independence movements across the continent. Yes, it is brilliant sons, Dr. Romeo Houghton, a distinguished economist, an indefatigable banker, and a civil servant of repute, conceived a great idea, the idea of the creation of what became the African Development Bank. What an amazing son you had. And he led a committee of 9 to put together what became today as the African Development Bank. So you can imagine the pride I have today to be in the same country, his own country, to speak to you about the work of the African Development Bank. Mr. President, when you were elected in 2024 as the 26th president of the Republic of Liberia, you set out a very clear mission. It was a solemn mission. You didn't come to it lightly. You said that day, and I was in the crowd, Liberia, your mission is to make Liberia a truly bright, shining star, a lone star forever. Yes. Yes, indeed, Liberia must shine. It must shine for its people. It must shine for its neighbors. It must shine for Africa. It must shine for the entire Black race with dignity and with honor. It is destined to, and it has a responsibility to. Mr. President, You said in your inauguration speech on Liberia that, I quote, "We have yet to receive economic progress in ways that reflect the country's potential and promise. But," then you continued, "I believe our economic conditions can improve when we seize the opportunities we have, and that we will do." Seizing and unlocking these opportunities is what the African Development Bank has been doing in Liberia. You heard on the skit, empowerment, 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 development, development, development. Great kids. Put it up for those. They were fantastic. I enjoyed every single bit of it. Since 1967, the African Development Bank has invested over $1.02 billion in Liberia across 72 projects. As of February of 2024, our active portfolio of projects includes 18 projects valued at $397 million, each destined to enhance the quality of life for all Liberians. Just think of the following. In transport, a total of 177 kilometers of road construction were completed under the bank's project in Liberia. This includes 50-kilometer Fishtown Harper Road project, the 16-kilometer Harper Junction to Cavalier Border Road, the 80-kilometer Caloctin to Fishertown Road, as well as the 22-kilometer Saniqueli to Loguantuo. I think I called it right. All right. Under the second phase of the Mano River Union Road Development and Transport Facilitation Program. In the energy sector, the bank has financed a total of 2,434 kilometers of electricity transmission and distribution lines. This includes 1,360 kilometers on the Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea interconnection project. This strategic regional integration project involves high voltage transmission lines, enabling Côte d'Ivoire to export 400 megawatts of power to the other countries in the Mano River Union member states of Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea. The African Development Bank financed 280 kilometers of transmission lines under the Liberia Energy Efficiency and Access Project, benefiting the Robert International Airport and the Plebo Fish Town. The African Development Bank provided $29 million to support the construction of a 45-kilometer, 66 kilovolt transmission lines from Painesville to Roberts International Airport. These included the 980 kilometers of transmission network in both Painesville-Owens Grove corridor and the Plebo Fishtown corridor. The Liberia Energy Efficiency and Access Project has resulted, Mr. President, in roughly 39,792 new connections to the electricity grid, accessing efficient and reliable supply of power. And power is important. It's just like blood in your body. No economy can develop. No person can live without blood. And no economy can develop without power, because you cannot grow or industrialize in the dark. So electricity is so important. This has allowed you to actually provide electricity for 50 health facilities, 65 academic institutions, 43 public facilities, 250 small businesses in Painesville, Owens Grove corridor, and the famous Plebo Fish Town corridor, and Liberia's military hospital, which is the 14th military hospital, including training of over 102 professionals and university graduates. Your Excellency, Mr. President, as the Minister of Finance said, the African Development Bank last year approved $16 million for the establishment of what is called the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. And I must say, this is the first of such anywhere in Africa. It will provide support to businesses and ventures of the youth of Liberia, your best asset, because more than 60% of your population is under the age of 35. I am delighted, Your Excellency, Mr. President, that later this afternoon in this program, I'll be joining you for the official launch of the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. And what a great day. And if you're a young person, you've got to clap your hands. And I can hear you, though. That's good. You should give it up to your president. How impactful. How much hope you will have unleashed. These achievements, Your Excellency, are just the beginning. Even though my time as president of the African Development Bank after 2 5-year terms end, this bank is your bank because it was created by the mind of your son. And therefore, this bank will continue to support strongly this country of Liberia, even when my time is up. And when my time is done, I will still be there. Since I was elected president of the African Development Bank in 2015, the bank has seen, thanks to our work, of course, my leadership, I have an incredible team of staff, and I have incredible relations and support from all of our shareholders, and including all of the African countries. And Mr. President, you are at the forefront of that. I'm grateful, sir, for all of your support for me. Over those 10 years under my leadership, the bank launched what I call the high fives. And they are Light Up and Power Africa, Feed Africa, Industrialize Africa, Integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life of the people of Africa. In fact, when I started it, people thought it was some kind of a high five you give people and you get along with your job. But it's actually very, very powerful. And I'm glad to tell you that in this 10 years, those high fives have impacted the lives of 565 million people. 128 million people with access to improved health services. 121 million people with access to improved transport. 104 million people with access to improved food, as they are food secure. 63 million people now have access to potable water. 34 million people now have access to improved sanitation. 28 million people have access to electricity. And of course, Mr. President, let me thank you. You were there with us at the summit on energy that we had in Dar es Salaam, where you led the country delegation for the development of the energy compact for your country. And I'm glad to say, and I don't know if anybody here is from the World Bank, I'm proud of our partnership with the World Bank on the Mission 300, which is to provide an additional 300 million people with access to electricity by 2030. Now, let me tell you a little bit about electricity. I was telling His Excellency, Mr. President, he gave me a very nice breakfast this morning. And Mr. President, that's the first part. Feed Africa, you have to start feeding the President of the African Development Bank. And I was saying to the President that when I went to the United States of America in 1983, it was my first time of actually, you had my background, and or ever traveling on a plane first, or talk less of coming outside of Africa. And I went to the United States, and I arrived there. And as soon as I arrived, I took my suitcase out, and I started ironing my clothes because I stayed with one of the families that had actually volunteered to receive foreign students. And it was one of the professors of the university. And I started ironing my clothes. I spent an hour ironing my clothes. And she came and she said, "Akin, what are you doing?" I said, "Of course I'm ironing my clothes." "Why? You've been there for 1 hour." I said, "Because I'm from Nigeria, Africa, they can take the electricity off anytime." And she said, "No, not in America." I said, "What do you mean?" That was when I realized that I had been living under an abnormality. You cannot make an abnormal thing becoming normal. Everybody, every African must have access to universal electricity. When I was elected president of the bank, the capital of the bank was $93 billion. Today, thanks to our shareholders, the capital of the bank is $318 billion. And we put that capital to tremendous use. Let me give you a context, because I'll be speaking to you today later about how you as ministers can help to bring about transformation, change in a short period of time. Because fundamentally, I believe that God has given each one of us talents and opportunities and places us in particular positions for a particular reason. And He has also given us oxygen that's going to expire. And that oxygen can either be used for a small thing or it can be used for a big thing. And since the oxygen is going to expire anyway, why use it for a small thing? Use it always for a big thing. Since the establishment of the African Development Bank in 1964, if you take it up to 2014, the total approvals of the bank, of the African Development Bank, was $118 billion. If you look in the last 10 years that I've been president of the bank, working with my team, our total approvals were $102 billion in just 10 years, compared to $118 billion since 1964. That means 46% of all the approvals of the bank in its history was done in just that 10 years. Take a look at disbursements, which is what's important. You can approve, but disbursement matters. In the past 10 years alone, our disbursement has been $59 billion. But here is it. That is almost half of all the disbursements of the African Development Bank since 1964, done in just a period of 10 years. These are not just numbers. Thanks to your collective support, this represents a new dynamism, a sense of purpose, a sense of pride and scale and transformative impact of the African Development Bank Group than at any point in its history. We provided financial support to African institutions. One of them is Africa 50. Many of you know Africa 50. Africa 50, when it was set up, was just a single piece of paper. Today, Africa 50, in just a few years, is now one of Africa's largest private sector-led private equity fund on infrastructure with a portfolio size of $7 billion in probably about 5 to 6 years. Take the Africa Investment Forum. I was telling Mr. President, people tell you, well, Africa is not a place to invest. Really? If you're not investing in Africa, I must ask you the question, where in the world are you investing in? When we started the African Investment Forum in 2018, people thought, who's going to come to Africa? Mr. President, there was COVID. We lost 2 years. But since 2018, minus that of COVID, you know what happened? We mobilized over $225 billion of investment interest to Africa in a very short period of time. When the world is talking about climate change, I led my team at the bank to create what is called the African Adaptation Acceleration Program, with $25 billion to allow African countries to adapt to climate change. Mr. President, today, the African Adaptation Acceleration Program, which we do jointly also with the Global Center on Adaptation, is the largest adaptation program in the entire world. Mr. President, one of the other things you will find in government is where are the resources. And therefore, one has to be very smart about getting the maximum out of the orange when you squeeze it. In other words, you have to optimize the resources. And that's one of the things that I led my team at the African Development Bank to do. We launched what was called the synthetic securitization. We were the first multilateral financial institution in history and in the world to launch synthetic securitization program. When we started, Mr. President, we launched what is a $750 million hybrid capital, which you get money from the private capital markets and you stack it into your stack of your capital stack. It allows you to leverage more. $750 million, never done before. The African Development Bank was the first multilateral financial institution in the world to do hybrid capital. Mr. President, you remember during COVID, the issue is how are we going to close the financial fiscal deficit that countries have. The African Development Bank, I led the bank to work together with the Inter-American Development Bank, and we work with the IMF to see how we can take the special drawing rights, the SDRs, and how we can turn those SDRs into resources channeled to multilateral development banks that we can leverage up to 8 times. So every single dollar becomes 8 times. So that is, in a world today where there is very limited aid, that is the best way to finance development. Because it means that if you give me $20 billion, you will get $160 billion. Again, that is the power of innovation at the African Development Bank. I've had the pleasure, the honor, and the privilege to represent the bank on global stage. Africa doesn't just need to sit around the table. Africa's voice must be heard. Africa's priorities must be understood, and Africa's interests must be strongly defended. In doing all that, I have a fantastic group from my manager, from my governors at the bank, to the staff of the bank, to the board of directors. We work so hard. Mr. President, despite all the challenges during COVID, despite all the challenges of the ups and downs of global financial market, we maintain the AAA credit rating of the African Development Bank for 10 years without a single problem. Transparency. I'll come to that when I share lessons with you. The Publish What You Fund, which is a global index of transparency, ranked the African Development Bank as the most transparent financial institution in the world. The index goes from 0 to 100. For 2 years consecutively, the African Development Bank was ranked as the most transparent in the world. And last year, we scored 98.8%. You don't get to think of that as an African institution, but that's what we are. Not just an African institution, because I believe that development can only be done with pride. You must earn your respect. Nobody gives it to you. And therefore, I am proud of the fact that you have a world-class financial institution that is an African institution. We have a fund at the bank that is called the African Development Fund, which is the concessional financing window of the bank. Our support to Liberia, Mr. President, comes from the African Development Fund. And I would like to say, Mr. President, there was a ranking of funds, concessional financing institution, across all the OECD countries, 55 of them globally. The African Development Fund was ranked as the second best in the entire world. And so as I complete my 2 5-year terms, I know that we are leaving behind a legacy of a world-class financial institution that will continue to advance Africa's position within a rapidly changing global development and geopolitical environment. I would like to now share with you, and that's why I told you all of this. I would like to share with you the robust lessons from my experiences. As you work together as cabinet members under the leadership and vision of the president on what you call the rescue agenda. And how can you fast track that Let me repeat this just for your understanding as I start. There is only one person in this place that has the social and the political capital of the country invested in him and on the line. That person is President Boakai. Because you entrusted him with faith and confidence. And so the discussion now that I'm turning to is, how do you work together? What are the lessons that I have learned to make sure that you can deliver for him and through him in a fast-tracked manner? The time of a president is like this. The needs of a country is like that. How do we bring that to that and forward faster? That is what I'm going to turn to right now. The first thing, vision is the compass that leads to success. It is impossible to achieve what you have not envisioned. Vision must be compelling and must be a moral call that will wake up and inspire ordinary people to rise up, to seize the moment, and to achieve extraordinary things. Before I was elected president, I told you, I came up with what's called the high fives. I'll repeat it again. Light up, empower Africa, feed Africa, industrialize Africa, integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life of the people of Africa. And when I mentioned it, I said, people thought I was just kidding, like a high five. Well, maybe that's what you think. Many people thought that. But it was so powerful, and that the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, did an assessment of those high fives. You know what they found? That if Africa achieved these high fives, it will have achieved 90% of the Sustainable Development Goals. It will have achieved 90% also of Agenda 2063, which is the Africa that we want. So, Mr. President, your vision, which has an acronym called ARREST, A-R-R-E-S-T, agriculture, roads, rule of law, education, sanitation, and tourism. This is a very powerful packaging of what you need to do if well implemented. Cabinet members, people of Liberia, these 6 areas will drive economic transformation. They will boost rural economies and transform them. They will ensure food security. They will lower the cost of transport within Liberia and regionally and allow you to integrate with the rest of the region. They will enhance the development of human capacity. Depending on over-relying on simply few commodities in which your export base is fairly narrow. The high fives, Mr. President of the bank, are fully aligned with the ARREST agenda. And that is why I say that you can be sure that the African Development Bank will be there beside you, with you, supporting you, to translate that ARREST into concrete impact on the ground. The second lesson that I've learned that I want to share with you, demand measurable results. I'll say that again. Say it after me, actually. Demand measurable results. Maybe some people didn't want to have results, they didn't talk loud, but say it after me, I want to hear it. It's a conversation I'm having. Demand measurable results. To ensure that we can measure the results of the high fives at the African Development Bank, we had to do a complete overhaul of the entire organization. First, by aligning the organizational structure to the high five agenda. If your structure is not designed or aligned to your vision, it is like a car you are driving in which the turning wheel is there. One tire is going this direction and the other tire is going that direction. And God help you if you're speeding in that kind of a car. We created 5 vice presidencies, each responsible for each of these high fives. That meant I could hold people accountable for the results at the end. We changed our results and monitoring framework at the bank to be based around these high fives, so that we can rigorously measure the impact of the high fives operations at all levels for countries and across the regions. We had bank-wide key performance indicators that we set annually. And every vice presidency, director general, directors, down the line to all professional staff had to sign performance contracts. And because the high fives were all linked together, there had to be interdependencies between them. And so we had to make sure that the performance contract take into consideration those interdependencies so that you can work as a system to deliver jointly. And this is very important. Minister Ngafwan was in my country manager in Uganda. We had to take the sector operations, energy, health, and all of those, and align them a different heart now. I was Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture. And so you can imagine how big Nigeria is. I had to feed 208 million people. That was my responsibility. There is need to have a change of mindset about what it means to be a minister. Ministers are not small presidents. Let me say it again. Ministers are not small presidents. They gave me a car, they gave me a flag to fly it around in my car. But that's not for my personal use, that's for the duty of the state. So I was there because the only person that has social and political capital is the president, because the president is elected and a minister is appointed. This is very, very important if you are ever going to really succeed. The primary responsibilities of a minister is to help the president succeed by designing and implementing policies and programs in their respective portfolios to deliver measurable and impactful results. Yeah, if you want to clap, you can. Let me say to you, from my experience, a job of a minister is like somebody driving or riding a speed train. You have to choose your direction. You have to choose your destination. You have to pick your speed. And you must have this behind your mind. There is no stopping until you get to that destination. There is therefore no reason for any minister to underperform, because a minister reports to the president. Now, sometimes I remember my experience when we were asked to do key performance indicators. We were asked by my president at the time, President Goodluck Jonathan, to work with the Minister of National Planning. I'm sure you got the same thing here. I hope you do. And when I set my targets, Mr. President, they were so high that it scared the minister. And the minister said, well, if you don't achieve this, that's going to be underperformance and the government will be affected. And then we went to the cabinet meeting and the president quietly said, Minister of Agriculture, I think it's important that you bring those numbers down, because what I said was that we were going to produce additional 20 million metric tons of food. Okay? If you want to understand what that is, take an Airbus 380. It's the largest passenger aircraft you will find. The fuel, the luggage, and the passengers is only 98.4 tons, as big as it is. And now, try and figure out what that means when I say 20 million tons of food. And so I can understand that they were affected. And when I was asked to bring it down, I politely asked for the floor from my boss. Mr. President, you are the only one with social and political capital on the line. The only thing that I ask for as a minister is that Your Excellency, you give me the support that I need. If you give me the support that I need, and I fail to deliver, I will make your job very easy. You fire me. And I remember the cabinet room was very quiet, because I was the only one that has put my neck on the guillotine alone. But my decision, though risky, set the tone. You see, if you are to lead, you have to take risks. And you will never inspire people when your vision is a Mickey Mouse vision. We worked with my team, and maybe in the Q&A I can tell you a little bit about how you do some of that. But we did 21 million metric tons of food, which is above the 20 million, which everybody thought it was crazy. We did that in 4 years. We reached 15 million farmers with seeds and fertilizers. At the time, seed and fertilizer was a corrupt thing. Only 11% of the farmers were getting seeds and fertilizers bought and sold by government. When I came in, I said, no. Why is it that you can find Coca-Cola in every village and you can't find seed and fertilizer? Coca-Cola company is based in Atlanta, Georgia. But I can find it in any single village, but I can't find seed and fertilizers. So when I came in, no more import and no more government contracts on seed and fertilizer. If it's your product, get it to your customers yourself. Build your value chains to reach them where they are. We set up systems to allow to do, I can talk about it in the Q&A session, but this much I wanted to say. Transparency, leadership, good governance produces incredible results for the public good. For 40 years before that time, the percentage of farmers that were getting seeds and fertilizers subsidized by government was only 11%. So fertilizers develop legs and hands and just walk away. But we put in place a system with a mobile phone. I registered all the farmers, 15 million farmers, biometric information, cut off all the middlemen, gave them access to government subsidies in their village on their own phone. And guess what, Mr. President, happened? The percentage of farmers getting seeds and fertilizers subsidized by government rose from 11% to 94%. And that's why you got the result that I'm talking about. And the non-performing loans on the credit given, less than 1%. When I was passing through, I had my name been mentioned by some of the staff. Oh, technocrat. They think they can change things. Give him 2 weeks, he'll calm down. On my first day at work, I say I'm a workaholic. I work till 11 p.m. So, which means everybody working with me, you can't go home until 11 p.m. So when I was walking around and they said, no, this guy will just start, we'll tire him out. Next day I said, we close at midnight. Point I'm making is this. If you don't want to be a minister, don't ask for the job. Because the job of a minister is not a decorative plant. The job of a minister is to work selflessly for the people, relentlessly, against all odds, to deliver for the president who puts you there. That is what it takes. And so don't tell me that whenever you're a minister, you set your goals so low. That is not ambitious enough. If you're jumping over a stool this small, that's not an achievement. Set very ambitious thing. Set it because you have the president to back you to do it. I think you should clap for the president to do that. Fourth, encourage teamwork. Please say it after me, encourage teamwork. One of the biggest problems you will have as ministers, or that we have in government, is ego. As a minister, forget your egos. Work together for the delivery of impactful programs for Liberians. We deliver more when we work together instead of each standing in and defending their own siloed territories. When I sat down with the president in his office, His Excellency the President, before we were coming, and he sat down and I looked behind him. That was a beautiful a picture. And I liked it so much. He said, you can accomplish incredible things if you do not care who gets the credit. And so I said, Mr. President, you mind if I take a picture? Mr. President, I'm going to tweet that picture because you're an amazing president to have that kind of a mindset. I have a principle I want to share with you today. It's called the baobab principle. If you look in every African village, you have big baobab trees. You've seen them? Now, if you like to plant your own tree, that's okay. Put your hand around your own baobab tree, take it home. You can't, because it's too big. Every challenge and every opportunity that you have in Liberia is like a baobab tree. It takes more than your own hand. It takes multiple hands around it to turn those challenges into opportunities. Are you with me? And so therefore, you must have that as an approach. I used that when we had to do Mission 300, Mr. President. Today, with the World Bank, we can do 300 million people access to electricity. We did it for agriculture. Feed Africa Summit. We brought the world together, working together with others. We mobilized $72 billion to support Africa to do agriculture. And so I would like you to do something for me now. Please kindly stand, except the president. Except the president. So please hold the hand of the person next to you. So please, we are going to do, just imagine that you're looking at Liberia as a baobab tree of challenges and opportunities. And now say this after me. Together. I can hear you. Together. We will do joint work planning. We will wrap our hands around the challenges and opportunities of Liberia. We will work as one government. And we will deliver incredible results. So help us God. Please sit down. Because of what you've just seen here, I would like you, Mr. President, to please put in place an interagency presidential performance award system that rewards collective effort around the baobab of opportunities that you decide yourself, because you have to work as one government. Fifth, execute via one government. You know, when I go to the bank, we were operating in silos. Everybody had their own thing. I am back on breaking down the culture of silos and created what we call a one bank. Rufus is here. One bank approach. I keep telling my staff, if you go to the assembly line of a Mercedes-Benz, the only thing you see is a Mercedes-Benz. You don't see the engineers, you don't see the electronic parts, you don't see the ones that are putting leathers on the chair. The only thing that comes out is a Mercedes-Benz. So as you work together, your work is so important. But what's most important is, what is your government delivering at the end? That is the Mercedes-Benz. So don't major on the minors. Major on the major, because the president will be assessed by what comes out of that assembly line. Are we together? That's what we should be doing. One government, simple but powerful. The sixth point I want to say, it's about football. Now, there's no real need for you to have rules in soccer if a referee never uses the yellow card or the red card. Mr. President, I want to applaud you for your decision to conduct performance appraisals for public institutions. Give it up to the president. I also want to commend you for your work to sanction those that are not in compliance. I want to commend you for your performance management and compliance system, critical to track performance. But it is only as good as the system applies consequences management. Mr. President, I was reading the performance management and compliance system. And of course, I understand those who put it together. And they said something about performance improvement plan. Mr. President, That is not practicable for you in an elected office. Your time of office is very short. You do not have time to babysit underperformers. And so be firm. Reward performers. Dispense with non-performers. When you see underperformance of an individual, of an agency, of an institution that is not scoring development goals for you, change the team. They say a stitch in time saves 9. And lastly, 7th, re-engineer, reform, and strongly support the civil service and a reformed judiciary that is independent to safeguard the rule of law. You said it all, Mr. President, in your inauguration speech. I quote, "We must restore dignity and integrity to the civil service. Livable remuneration and pension schemes for civil servants and foreign service government workers," end of quote. And to the judiciary, you said, and I quote, "We must restore respect for the rule of law and respect for the officers of the law across the 3 branches of government," end of quote. You said further, and I quote, "Our government pledges to improve transparency, accountability, and openness to promote good governance," end of quote. Mr. President, the civil service is the engine room of government. However, it is not always well aligned with the vision and direction of governments. Sometimes it is too bureaucratic and lack performance culture, which undermines the ability of governments to succeed and to succeed quickly. An effective civil service also must have a performance culture to deliver quality services for its citizens. I put in place at the bank for the whole continent what is called public service delivery indices that measures how every public institution delivers services for its people. When people pay taxes, they must demand results, and the results must be delivered by those institutions. Mr. President, I would like to commend the government for launching the Service Delivery Charter, which you have. But more than that charter, it is how the citizens assess the quality of services that matters more than anything else. The rule of law and good governance are critical for national development, whether it's in terms of protection of human rights, property rights, and contract enforcement, which are critical for attracting investments. An independent and well-supported judiciary is the backbone for national development. As I close, Your Excellency, Mr. President, let me say that Liberia's rescue mission and the new future under the arrest agenda will depend on how you harness your resources. We are in a time right now of declining aid and declining concessional finances. But I want to say something today. There is no nation in the world that God has not given what it needs to develop. Often we look around us and we see stones, but in those stones are diamonds and gold. How we harness the resources, how we manage the resources, how we optimize the resources is fundamental, because fundamentally, I believe every nation must stand tall and be able to develop with pride. But when you depend on others, it's like a walking stick. Keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You're moving forward, but actually you are not progressing because you are about to fall down. So, Mr. President, here's what I want to say. You are blessed with tremendous resources: forests, agricultural land, water, minerals, metals. There is absolutely no reason why Liberia should not be a rich country. And as you negotiate, and there will be things to negotiate, is a highway to wealth. And Liberia is tired of being poor. For only then, when you banish poverty, will Liberia, with its name, which connotes liberty, will really be free, truly free. You are a nation of diversity. Liberia must see its diversity as its strength, not its weakness. Regardless of where and how you were born, your genes are Liberian. They are genes of hope, strength, and resilience. Genes that allow you to overcome adversity and ravages of conflicts and wars. Yet you remain standing. Genes that make you to excel against all odds. If you have these genes in you and you're here today, let me hear you say, I am Liberian. I can't hear it enough. I said, if you have these genes in you and you believe what I'm saying, say, I am Liberian. Fantastic. As your president, President Bokai, said in his inauguration speech, think Liberia. Love Liberia. Together, build Liberia. I say to you today, Liberia, from the words of Prophet Isaiah, arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, darkness will cover the earth, and gross darkness the peoples. For the Lord will rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And nations shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. For I know within my soul that Liberia will truly shine like the lone star forever. May God bless Liberia. May God bless President Bokai. May God bless the government of the Republic of Liberia. And may God bless the lovely people of Liberia. Thank you very much.
You can do better than that, please. Please have your seats. Mr. President, as I heard Dr. Adesina speak, I thought we had the national orator for July 26. He sounded professorial. He sounded like a visionary. He sounded pragmatic. And he sounded like a Pan-Africanist. And I thought it was music to my ears. And Mr. President, we are inspired today by these words, because I know deep in my heart your thoughts, your vision, and the things you want to do for this country. And I think some of the things the doctor and professor said this afternoon reflect your agenda and how you want to move this country. And therefore, I'm appealing to my colleagues here this morning, this afternoon, and the entire country that will move forward with our country. Thank you so much. You know, Dr. Adesina is quoted as saying, the youth is one of the greatest assets we have in our country. And if we can apply the demographic dividend that we have as a country in terms of this youthful population, we'll increase productivity and advance our country. And therefore, it is essential that we focus on how we empower and promote our youth. So at this time, there'll be a brief overview of the Liberia Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. Okay, before that, you heard Dr. Adesina, and from your reaction and your response to his presentation, I can imagine that you have so much in your mind, and you have questions and comments, questions to ask and comments to make. And so we'll give you the opportunity, but we're going to manage this. It will not go on forever. And so we would like to call on those who have some questions and comments to ask the good old professor for a response. So we'll take the first three. The Minister of Agriculture. Remember, Professor Adesina was a Minister of Agriculture, so you be careful.
Thank you, Professor Adesina. You know, I was one of your admirers when you were Minister of Agriculture. At that time, I was doing graduate studies in China, and I had the Nigerian colleagues who were my classmates. When you came up with the 2 million ton objective, 20 million ton, we actually argued in our class. I had this guy who came from Oyo. His name is Odu. So, and I told him, look, this is not achievable. I said it. But as we went along the way, I followed you up to the time I left graduate school. And I was very impressed. Because of what you did, before His Excellency asked me to become Minister of Agriculture, I have prepared myself because of what I saw you do for Nigeria. To actually do 21 million tons in 4 years, I thought it was something that was not achievable. So I thought to copy what you did in my own way. So before I became minister, I prepared a plan. And that plan is actually to feed Liberia. We call it a Liberian Feed Yourself agenda. And my colleagues tell me it's overly ambitious. So, as I listen to you, I think I feel vindicated, and the Honorable Minister of Finance, I think he will bear with me the next time when I take my budget to him. But I really wanted to know, from your perspective as Minister of Agriculture, in Nigeria, a diverse country, a complicated country, a country where ministers sometimes, you know, even though you said ministers are not God, but in Nigeria, the big ministers are ministers. We know what they do. So I would like to know from your perspective as Minister of Agriculture, how were you able to navigate between your position, the Minister of Finance, the presidency, to be able to achieve that objective? Because we want to feel Liberia. We have a minimum budget that people feel is unreasonable. We want to invest 718 million in 5 years, and we feel that is not something that's realistic.
Yes, two more.
Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, I'm really enthralled by your presentation. And I've been following your trajectory for a while now. My name is Dr. Sana Ziyama, and I'm a Liberian and a private investor in Liberia who is just returning to resettle back home. And apparently, I just learned during Minister Gafuan's introduction that you and I are fellow Boilermakers. And for those of you who don't know this, that means he and I got our PhD from the same university. So as I said, I've watched you as a private citizen. You know, all of the awards, and I'm super grateful that the government of Liberia invited you to honor you for your great work. And for all of that, I wanted you to know from another brother, from the belly of Africa, this is an endearing moment for me to see you personally, after all of what I have watched you go through as a Pan-African activist investor, fighting for the livelihood and for the advancement of Africa. I have watched you through your second term, the struggles and challenges you faced because of your position and how you triumphed through it with the support of other African brothers. I am deeply, deeply grateful for all of what you've done in Africa. And I wanted you to know this, not just as the awards you've been receiving from government, but that you are deeply appreciated from private citizens' point of view. But I have a question. And the question and admonition here is that as you step aside from your position and from your tenure as president of the bank, I almost want to say I encourage you to, but I think I shouldn't say that, because the flame that burns in you is not going to be extinguished by your end of tenure as president. You are going to continue to advocate for Africa as you've promised. So I believe that just by listening to you and from your history. But one thing I wanted to bring to your attention, which is the main thing about your high fives, is the lighting, empowering Africa. I want to encourage and even implore you to focus that on industrial solar power. I think it has the propensity to unlock and unblock Liberia's latent industrial potential, which we haven't achieved yet. I do appreciate lighting homes with lights, but empowering industrial processes in Liberia is truly the key to wealth creation for Liberia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adesina. Wonderful and inspiring remarks to us as we serve in this capacity. Earlier this year, I was fortunate to be invited to the Africa Development Conference as a panelist at Harvard University. And what stuck with me from that discussion was entrepreneurship. How do we drive entrepreneurship in our youth population? We boast Africa having a young population of Africans. As a business leader, what would be some lessons that you can share with a minister of education to start to think through how do we empower Africa's future through entrepreneurship education that fuels research and innovation? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Adesina, Mr. President, and fellow cabinet members. I would like to, mine is more of an appreciation, a comment, and maybe a little ask in the end. I'd like to say a big thank you to you. You've been a good friend and a brother to the president and to Liberia. I remember when the president sent me as his envoy to meet with you in Abidjan and South Africa, Johannesburg, I remember. Yes. So when I went to meet you, you said, but how are you delivering? And I said, well, we had a delivery unit, but it's not very active. And you said, I will include you in domestic resource mobilization and you will get some funding. So fast forward, we've been on a study tour in South Africa, and we learned their best practices there. We're still waiting for funding to come through. But fortunately, yesterday, or additionally, I got a signal from the UNDP that they're going to put more money into the President's Delivery Unit. So I'd like to say a big thank you to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it working? Thank you very much, Minister of Agriculture. Yeah, you know, let me, Mr. President, sir, because he included your name inside of the question. I remember when I was minister, I was running so many reforms. They were not popular reforms. And stepping on toes, you have to. I'm not even sure whether stepping was enough. You have to crush some toes, actually. But sometimes I'll go into the president's office, and he will say to me, Akin, did you see the people that are just leaving? I said, yeah, I saw them. So they all came in here to ask me to fire you. He said, but I wanted to go out there and kick them some more. What I'm saying is, when you have a loyal lieutenant that is willing to do what it takes to deliver on your agenda, presidents should back them 100%. I was very fortunate that President Jonathan, my president, backed me 1,000%. I remember a situation that happened when people thought the whole country was going to fall apart. Was in 2012. We had just experienced the worst flood in the history of the country. And my staff, that was my AD camp, he's here. Actually, he left Nigeria. I took him there. He was so faithful and loyal. I took him. I brought him to the bank. He's here. Can you stand? Inspector Shola, yeah. And we were going to the office one day. He said, Honorable Minister, look at the newspapers. They are saying there's going to be food crisis. There's going to be food riots because this is the worst flood in the history of the country. I said to him, don't worry. Noise is not statistic. Just keep your eyes focused. And so I remember I had to deal with this issue practically. And I got support from the International Water Management Institute, which is the world's largest center for water control. And we're in my office for 5 days. It was like in a bunker. As I finished about 10 o'clock on the 5th day, tired and exhausted, I got a call from the president. I'd like to see you in the morning tomorrow because all the news say we are going to have a food crisis. And of course, the importers had gone over there and they've found a way of telling the president there's going to be crisis, food price inflation, it's going to be this and that. And so I took, fortunately, knowledge is power. Don't underestimate analysis that is yours. Newspaper is not an analytical report. So we did our analysis. We are buying satellite imageries over Nigeria. I divided the whole country into little pixels. So when you say there's a flood, I want to know how much is the area flooded? How much of that area flooded is arable land? How much of that arable land is cultivated land? What is the stage of crop growth when the flood was at its maximum? Because the fact that I have a flood doesn't mean I'm going to lose everything. So we had data. in Korea. They gave me, say $500,000. I said, don't pay that money into my account. Pay it into the foundation. Because without the generosity of people, without the resources of the state provided for me to do what I did, how could I have succeeded? And there are so many people, young people, they can't even go to school and all that. So what I'm trying to say is this. We owe it as a duty and as a responsibility to transfer what we have into the next generation. How do you build the next President Boakai? How do you build the next Adesinas? And I have so many and so on, and other people that are leaders that are here. You know, it takes having a foundation where it's more than money, it's your time, it's your leadership, it's your mentorship, it's your support. You know, I am a firm believer in the fact that Africa's future is going to be so bright that the future is going to depend on the young people that are here. Are you a young person here? Just put your hand. Yeah, the future of Liberia is there, but it's not in the future. That future is here. So let's support them. Let's do that. And of course, you know I will never close anything without singing. So I'm going to sing you, Mr. President, a song. Or information, and I'll sing.
Thank you very much. I'm Jerome Pia, the Minister of Information. I fully agree with you that we should be very ambitious. And as a country, we chose to be very, very ambitious. We developed our new development agenda. It will cost about 8.38 billion for execution. We have projected that as a country, we can afford just 30%. And the outstanding 70% should come from our partners. So you see the obstacle between our bold ambition and our capacity to deliver. What will you advise, in your expert opinion, as to how we can balance ambitions versus resources?
Well, thank you very much, Minister. First and foremost, I think if you're trying to, let me say domestic resource mobilization is the key. Because you can't just depend on others. You know, you can't be a parent that says it's dinner time and it's time to eat. And I tell my kids to go and eat at the neighbor's house. The neighbor may like me, he may love me even to death, but it's not the responsibility of my neighbor to feed my kids. And so we must develop with pride, which means generate the resources that we need from better managing the resources that we have. That's the first thing. The second thing is to make sure that you limit the leakages. And let me tell you why. Today, multinational companies are all over the place. They don't pay the taxes. They don't pay the royalties they should be paying over your national assets. Yes, a lot of base shifting, profit shifting, base erosion, just to be able to take resources out. Today, you have Africa probably getting about $171 billion a year in terms of resource inflows, but it loses more than $580 billion. So you have about $300-something billion that is lost to illicit capital flows and corruption. That's why I was saying that it doesn't matter how much you have a pipe, if the bucket is leaking, what are you doing? And so there must be public accountability. There must be, you have to close the loopholes on illicit capital flows and corruption that makes sure, you know, that $300-something billion is more than 3 times the infrastructure financing gap of Africa. If you do nothing, just closing that gap alone is enough. The other thing that I want to say is, do you like steak? Do you like eating steak? What kind of steak do you like? T-bone steak? Okay. The reason I'm asking is I like steak. And if you take a T-bone steak, you can't eat it at once. Otherwise, you're going to choke. There has to be good public planning. Not everything important needs to be done at the same time. Sequential planning. This we can do within the resources we have. This we can do within the other resources when we have it. Third, transparency by leaders to their populations. When a doctor is speaking to a client, they have to tell the client exactly what the problem is so that the client can trust them. So governments should have no problem telling their people that, look, we want to build this, but the resources we have, it's not enough to do it. So I'm telling you that we will do it at this time and this time so that we can manage the economy better. That is very, very important so that you don't overcharge the load of the government and then the government is not able to finance that. The other challenge that you will have is today, you have a lot of challenges with the issue of tariffs, and I'm sure it affects everybody. Well, that's why we need to build the intra-Africa trade. Because if you actually trade in among yourselves, you are much better off because you are not as susceptible to the volatilities of the market like that. So we must trade among ourselves. The last thing I want to say is capital. The investor there from my Purdue guy, he was saying it's a private investor. Make your country investable. Good regulations, good policies, contract enforcement, rule of law. People can take their money out, certainty, of contracts, sanctity of contracts, and all of those things. Capital is like water. It always flows, but nothing can stop the flow of capital. If it meets a restriction, it will find another way. And if Africa wants to get capital from global, we have to make our environments easier for capital to come into, to stay, to grow through their investments. And so from your domestic resource mobilization, from your public financial management, to your management of your debt properly, to making sure you are collecting the right taxes and royalties. And Mr. President, this one, let me just say, sir, Africa has so much natural resources, just like you do here. Minerals, metals, oil, gas, agriculture, everything. Biodiversity, carbon. We are green. We are rich, natural resource rich. We are green rich, but we are cash poor. And therefore, we have to also make sure that we can change. Let me say, the Minister of Finance, I'm getting technical here, but it's important because the President told me about your natural resources. Your GDP is the value of goods and services that any economy produces. But that GDP doesn't tell you about how it is produced and the negative externalities of that production. In other words, what are the things that are creating problems for others from your production? Like climate change, greenhouse gas emissions and all of that. You have biodiversity. If your GDP is to be re-estimated, taking into consideration the value of your natural capital, your GDP as Liberia will be much higher. And that's why I'm saying we must re-estimate Africa's GDP to take into consideration the value of Africa's natural capital stock. If somebody is buying your carbon, the European emission trading standard, you cannot exceed it. If you exceed it, you have to go and compensate somewhere else. If you buy that carbon in Europe, it costs you up to 200 euros per ton. If you buy it in Africa, it's $1 to $3 a ton. Okay? And so there are so many rich countries buying a lot of lands across Africa. But if you are trying to generate resources from that, be careful for the following reasons. First, you are getting peanuts. That's the first thing. Second, the land you are given, you no longer have control over that land anymore. You cannot use the value of that carbon to be part of your nationally determined contributions again, because it doesn't belong to you. And then you don't develop your local carbon market. You don't develop your regional carbon market. And finally, you cannot use the value of the carbon you have again to re-estimate your own GDP. Take into consideration the value of your natural capital. So you will continue to be green rich and cash poor. And therefore, that is why I mentioned to the president today, we're having that discussion. It's very important that we do things properly. My mother told me, bless her soul, she's gone to heaven. She told me when I was a kid and used to sell things for her. She says, when you go to the market, if you tell people what you are selling is a bad product, nobody's going to buy it. But if you tell them what you're selling is good for your health, people will buy it. What I'm saying is that let us find a way in which we are taking we are looking at ourselves and we are valuing ourselves properly. Because when you don't value yourself properly, obviously you will never have enough resources. And I think it's very important for the president to work on this issue of natural capital, because I think the economy of Liberia can be much bigger than it is if the value of the natural capital is taken into account. Now, having said that, Mr. President, you have a great cabinet, and I really pray that God blesses all of them as they help you to succeed, and you will succeed. Because you're a very focused and determined president, and you're a very humble man, too. And God loves humble people. So let me sing, because I know that it can be tough, but it's going to get better. Okay. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles. It's gonna be a bright, stand up, bright, sunshiny day. I can't look, I know I can't make it now. The rain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is the rainbow I've been waiting for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue sky. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. The bad feelings have disappeared. There is a rainbow I've been waiting for. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. Sunshiny day. It's gonna be right.
Wow. Please have your seat. Dr. Adesina will come back on stage to officially launch the Liberian Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. And then there'll be a special statement by His Excellency, the President. So we'll now ask Dr. Adesina to come on stage and please officially launch the YEIB.
Your Excellency, Joseph Uyuma Boakai, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Kun, Honorable Ministers that are here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon again. I am delighted to join you again, Mr. President, for the launch of the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia. It's a day that brings hope to the youth of Liberia. It's a day that will unleash vast economic opportunities for the youth of Liberia. A day that sends a powerful message: invest in the youth of Liberia. For the time has come to unleash their entrepreneurial capacities. The time to make financial capacity work for the youth. This is because Liberia is a youth nation. The youth bulge is very high in Liberia, with about 71% of its 5.7 million people under the age of 35. But it is tough for the youth of Liberia. According to the African Development Bank, the youth underutilization rate is about 76% due to high unemployment and reliance predominantly on low-paying informal jobs. No one knows this better than President Boakai, who in his speech to the second meeting of the cabinet on March 13, 2025, said, and I quote, "We must pay attention to the youth issues. Many young people have gone to school, earned degrees, and are seeking employment, but they have no jobs," end of quote. President Boakai called for urgent and decisive actions and said, and I quote, "If the government fails to tackle these challenges, we will be in trouble." At the heart of the problem is the low level of educational attainment of the government, of the youth, with only 55% of the youth having secondary or even higher education. The youth generally lack skills needed by the labor market due to a mismatch between the educational training they get and the needs of the labor market. They also lack entrepreneurial skills, especially digital skills that are central today in the age of the fourth industrial revolution, especially for artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, and the rise of the digital economy. These structural challenges have not prepared the majority of the youth for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. Informal employment accounts for 80% of the jobs of the young people. Liberia's youth now drift, with high school dropout rates very high, especially among young adolescent girls, and rising substance abuse. Liberia must not watch as its best assets, its youth, falter. The future of Liberia's youth cannot be left to hustling. Your Excellency, Mr. President, the topmost agenda of the government of Liberia should be the youth. Everything the government does must focus on creating jobs for the youth as you've requested, and supporting the youth to create jobs for themselves, turning the youth from job seekers to job creators should be the priority. Every effort should be made to develop skills, especially through technical and vocational training, as well as support for the development of entrepreneurship skills and capacities. This has been the focus of the African Development Bank, starting with our Youth Entrepreneurship and Employment Project in Liberia, which was completed 3 years ago. The project supported the development of curriculums for entrepreneurship and established an entrepreneurship center at the Nimba County University. The project also supported business plan competitions for the youth who completed the technical and vocational training to receive seed funding for their businesses. But due to insufficient grant funding at the time, many of the aspiring youth entrepreneurs could not secure financing to start their businesses. The lesson is clear. Simply providing technical and vocational training is not enough. A financial ecosystem is needed to support young entrepreneurs to access capital to turn their ideas and creativity into viable businesses. That youth-focused financial ecosystem is missing in Liberia. The current financial system caters for the large corporates, while the microfinance institutions cater for the micro enterprises. However, there is a missing middle there between the commercial banks and the microfinance institutions, which does not take care of the entrepreneurs. The large commercial banks are too big, while the microfinance institutions are too small. Yet, entrepreneurs in Liberia need equity, not just loans. But missing in Liberia is a regulatory framework that will robustly support asset managers to invest in businesses and ventures of the youth. The African Development Bank, Mr. President, launched the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks precisely to address the market failures and the missing institutional problems facing access of youth-led businesses to patient capital to start, nurture, and grow their businesses. We have so far approved over $180 million in support of youth entrepreneurship investment banks for several countries in Africa. Through this, the African Development Bank is putting its capital at risk to back the ventures of young people. It is a risk worth taking. That's because rising unemployment of the youth poses the greatest risk to social, economic, and political stability of Africa. The Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia, which we are launching today, Your Excellency, that you are launching today, was approved last year by the African Development Bank with a financing of $16 million. And I would like to thank the Executive Director, Rufus Dakote, who did a fantastic job of pushing this through at the board. I am delighted and proud that Liberia is the first country in Africa to launch its Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. Congratulations. I wish to acknowledge and thank the MasterCard Foundation for its incredible support in the design of the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia. Your Excellency, Mr. President, the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia will provide financial and non-financial services to the youth to start and to scale their businesses by strengthening the overall entrepreneurship ecosystem and all its stakeholders. It will forge multi-stakeholder partnerships to mobilize capital to invest and coordinate the delivery of financial and non-financial services for entrepreneurs in a systemic, structured, scalable, and sustainable manner. The Youth and Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia will operate under a management holding company with 3 special purpose vehicles. First, an early stage equity fund, which will offer long-term capital to small and medium-sized enterprises through equity and quasi-equity, helping them to launch, to grow, and to scale their businesses. Second, technical assistance fund, a private foundation, which will support non-financial offerings, including technical assistance to small and medium-sized enterprises to prepare them for investment, financial literacy, and support to financial and non-financial service delivery partners. Third, a credit guarantee fund, which will mitigate lending risks in the market through the provision of credit guarantees to obviate the need for collaterals required by financial institutions from youth-owned businesses. Sometimes when a young person goes to a bank, and you enter a bank, you see somebody like me with a bow tie, all they see is risk. They don't even see opportunity. And they ask you for collateral that you don't have. They also ask you to go and bring your tax receipts for the last 40 years, and you are only 18 years old. The Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia will focus on critical sectors with immense opportunities for the youth, including agriculture, value addition with agribusiness, digital services, mining, and tourism. The Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia is expected to reach over 30,000 youth-led businesses. Support with financing 6,000 youth-led businesses, create 120,000 jobs, and contribute, Minister of Finance, you must be a happy man, an additional $80 million in tax revenues, taxes to the government. The Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia cannot do this alone. With the Baobab principle in mind, the African Development Bank will support the wider financial and non-financial services ecosystems. And that, Mr. President, is expected to unlock about $500 million in additional lending to youth-owned businesses across Liberia. To make this possible, the African Development Bank will establish, through another project, what's called Business, Innovation, and Development Centers. These centers will be nationwide. They will facilitate business development and development of government services to entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized enterprises. The Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia will operate with very strong corporate governance. It is a government-enabled, but not a government-run entity, even though the government will have the initial majority shareholder, and that will decline over time to the private sector. The bank will be governed by highly experienced private sector leaders from Liberia, who will serve as independent executive directors. The process, Mr. President, of professionalizing the youth steering committee are now operational. The boards of directors of the management holding company has been appointed. The recruitment of the chief executive officer and management team is underway. The licensing of the management company is expected in September of 2025. The full operations will begin in early 2026, but just 5 months away. Your Excellency, Mr. President, honorable ministers, the Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we are at an historic moment that will change the future of Liberia's youth. I can hear the sounds of rain for the youth of Liberia. Rain of hope, rain of opportunities, rain of success. Success as the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia unleashes economic opportunities for the youth of Liberia. Let us turn misery into hope and hope into wealth for the youth. Let us create youth-based wealth all across Liberia. And let us do it together. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'm happy to be here again for this.
Thank you very much. And I'll now turn the microphone over to the Chief of Protocol of the Executive Mansion.
We have another program to attend. So, but thank you, Dr. Adesina. Mr. Speaker of the House of Representatives of Liberia, other members of the National Legislature, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, members of the President's Cabinet, to include the Minister of Finance and Development Planning and other officials of government, Mr. Executive Governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, and heads of other banking institutions, members of the Traditional Council of Chiefs and Elders, entrepreneurs, business executives and business leaders, prelates and members of the clergy, performing artists at these ceremonies, all other invited guests, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On the occasion of the launch of the Liberia Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank and honoring ceremony, it is my pleasing duty at this time to present to you His Excellency Joseph Newman Boakai Sr., President of the Republic of Liberia, who will make remarks on this occasion.
Thank you very much. Please have your seats. The Honorable Jeremiah Coon is supposed to be in Nimba, the Vice President of Liberia. The Honorable Richard Coon, Speaker of the House of Representatives, our pro tem stands here. We recognize our Justice Sin, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, Madam Dean, and members of the Cabinet, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of African Development Bank, and members of your delegation,
our traditional chiefs, members of the fourth estate, members of the diplomatic council, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As I was sitting, I said, maybe Dr. Akiwumi doesn't understand why his bank was a AAA bank. Please look at your name. You're already a AAA. Thank you very much. It is a real pleasure to welcome you on this occasion, an occasion we've been waiting for the longest time. And today we gather to celebrate a great friend of Liberia, an outstanding African leader. Dr. Akiwumi, we welcome you very much on this day. That was why we had to rush to come back yesterday to make sure we meet you. Your presence here today is deeply meaningful to us and even to our youth. The fact that all three branches of government are represented here speaks volumes about the value we place in your visits and the respect we have for your leadership and the contributions you have made to Africa and continue to make. You are not a stranger to Liberia. You have been trusted as a partner and a champion for African development. Under your visionary leadership, the African Development Bank has not only grown in size, but have redefined the way development financing works on our continent. The bank's capital grew more than $4 billion in just 10 years compared to a little over $2 billion in previous 50 years. And I'm sure that the statistics are there to talk. That is not progress, it is transformation. Transformation. We are especially honored that Liberia is one of the countries you have chosen to visit as you conclude your remarkable tenure. And I'm not saying conclude, moving into another area, as we've discussed before, that will be even more meaningful to Liberia. This visit gave us the opportunity to learn from your experience, and we have drawn inspiration by your unwavering dedication to Africa's development. And by the way, you did it better than Lionel Richard, you know. You have shown the world that bold ideas, when combined with dear vision and determination, can produce extraordinary results. Through your leadership, the African Development Bank has invested in real solutions that touch the lives of everybody. Here in Liberia, the bank's current portfolio is impressive, standing at $408 million United States dollars and covering 18 projects in sectors critical to the growth of this country. These include transport, energy, agriculture, finance, and multi-sectorial initiatives. These investments are not just numbers on paper, They are roads that connect our communities, energy that lights up our homes and businesses, agriculture that protects and strengthens food security and create income for farmers. We also appreciate your support to public financial management reforms, which have improved fiscal discipline and enhanced service delivery to our country. These steps have helped us rebuild trust in governance and set the stage for lasting progress. Perhaps one of the most exciting initiatives we launched today is the Youth Entrepreneur Investment Bank. This speaks directly to the heart of the future of this country because over 60% of our population is under the age of 30. This program gives hope to our young people by turning them from job seekers into job creators. It will provide financing, mentorship, and the skill they need to succeed in agriculture, technology, the knowledge-based economy, and other emerging sectors. This aligns perfectly with our arrest agenda for inclusive development, which places strong emphasis on economic revitalization and private sector growth. I don't know, but when you call NIMBA, I can tell you in Liberia that's the heartbeat of youth entrepreneurship. And I want to say here that we are on the right track. We also see that we domesticate our rescue mobilization initiatives as a game changer, one that will support inclusive and sustainable development for Liberia across Africa. Dr. Adesina, as you prepare to move on to another chapter, I want you to know that your legacy in Liberia is strong and enduring. The programs you have championed will continue to make an impact for years to come on the lives of the youth and the lives of our people. As we look to the future, we sincerely hope that your successor at the African Development Bank will give thoughtful consideration to the Liberty Corridor project, an ambitious infrastructure initiative connecting Liberia to Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Mali. We want to emphasize that because, as you know, that is a key project to connecting this region, especially the Mano River Union. While this project is fundamentally about regional integration and shared prosperity, we must admit we will also love to play a role of a gateway for the landlocked neighbors to access the Atlantic, and that is very important. We believe this corridor holds great potential for unlocking growth and strengthening cross-border trade. So on behalf of the government and people of Liberia, I want to extend heartfelt appreciation to you and the African Development Bank family. As I was listening to the Agriculture Minister, and I usually tell them that in government, the Minister of Finance cut your money to balance the budget and leave you with a problem of budgeting the balance. So you always have, they take their money to balance budget and leave you with a problem of budgeting. I hope you can budget the balance well. And you were talking about dreams. Someone has said, if your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough. But the problem some of us have is that sometimes we forget a dream while we are still sleeping. Because if you don't remember your dreams, you're not going to be able to face them. So as you move into your new endeavors to serve Africa and the world, may you continue to inspire excellence, drive impact, and elevate African voices on the global stage. You emphasize good governance, accountability. That is what we're about. And you talked today about management, and we have been very strong on that. Accountability, making sure that people know that they are serving their country. As I share with you, when I travel out of the country, everybody is seeking greener pastures. And I tell them, the people sing, we shall overcome, and we say we shall come over. Everything is here. It's just that we need to manage them well. We need to take our resources and put them into good use. We have inherited a lot in this country, and we're trying to re-educate our people, the young people, to show them that good management pays. There's no reason why we should leave this country. We have to invest in the interior part of the country because everybody wants to come to the coast, C-O-A-S-T, come over and see trouble. Whereas you are not paying rent, you come to Monrovia, you have to pay rent. Let's make our then in the rural community where people don't want to fly, they don't want to go anywhere. They want to stay in their local situation and improve them, give them medical facilities, give them drinking water. And that's what, yesterday we were in Bonn, the first model high school that gave the children environment to study. The Bible says cleanliness is next to godliness. And they say, as the man thinketh, so he is. You give people good thinking environment, they think well. And I think we are trying in this country that our children, our youth, our women can do better in good environment in a society that corrupts But I have a special presidential pain here that I like to present to you. You won't believe. And I have Mamaka to come and paint you. Maybe you're the first getting this presidential pin. And I hope you cherish it. That's our seal. I will be going to Tubmanburg. I think we have a program there. Since we don't have the time to do what we're supposed to do this evening, I want to take him out of town. Let him go and see what we go through here. But I am doing that because of the love he has shown to this country. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Is it working? I think this is working. But this launching of the Youth Entrepreneurship Bank, we do this here in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Blessed Holy Spirit, if the procedure will permit. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're going home.
Members of the cabinet, can you join? Can you come on stage, please? Thank you very much. Please have your seats. Do we have members of the Youth Council here? The Youth Council.
I can do it.
But by way of announcement, all members of the cabinet are required to join the president in Tottenberg for the dinner. All cabinet ministers are required to join the president in Tottenberg this evening for the dinner.
MC wants to control one thing. You saw the program, they did everything. Nobody control everything. The difference here,
I ain't got a prayer with the just cemetery. I just don't think I share with you and I see nothing like that. So I got to talk with photo.
I mean, I told you, I've been telling Jenny ever since for us to have dinner. And she kept wasting time. She said you want to do some things with private sector. I said, but let's sit down one day and have everything. I said, well, when you came around, I guess what like you are calling me while the husband and here. Let's plan something maybe after the holiday. Yeah. Okay. Yeah? Yeah. We'll have a lot of planning. We're developing a whole public-private partnership. Strategy. I saw the thing in there. I saw the thing in there. I saw the thing in the paper. You know, look, I told my people, I said, no, this is something let's leave for the, but it looked like they want an expatriate company. So let's leave that one. Let's leave that one there for that company. Yeah, but we got more work to do together. Yeah.